Premier, Victorians have the right to know what agreements are being entered into in their name by the government. What exactly has the Victorian Labor government agreed to provide for the Israeli Defence Ministry?
Can I, at the outset, make it very clear that it's not a secret agreement? It is not a secret agreement, and it's also, too, I think, the member for Richmond's characterisation of the memorandum of understanding that that has been entered into. Is simply that, a memorandum of understanding, and it is listed on the Australian Government's Foreign Arrangement Scheme public register, along with 8,000. Along with, Speaker, 8,000 other cooperative international agreements. And I make this point, Speaker. We as a state are proud to partner with overseas companies, many of whom have a base here in Victoria, and we want to work with overseas companies to support jobs here in Victoria. And particularly when it comes to advanced manufacturing, we as a state, we have a history of being a strong advanced manufacturing state, and particularly in the areas of automotive, transport and, yes, defence technologies. We have a strong record as a state, Speaker, and those industries support jobs in my electorate, in the member for Benambra's electorate, in regional areas, and also too in electorates across the suburbs of Melbourne. And so we will continue to pursue cooperative agreements with companies that are based around the world. And indeed, Speaker, I have quite the list here of memorandums of understanding that have been signed by the Victorian Government with a range of countries: Japan, United Kingdom, Singapore, Greece, Japan again, Cuba. You might get excited about that. Maybe not.
Viva Cuba! Viva!
David Davis would be pleased to know we've done a few with France. So, Speaker, I think what we are seeing here from a member for Richmond, is trying to join some dots for her own political purposes that are about driving division in our community. We should be focused on providing unity and cohesion and support to all in our community who are feeling the pain and the hurt from the conflict that's going on in the Middle East. And I make the point to the member for Richmond that this MOU was signed before the conflict began on the 7th of October in the Middle East, and she would do well as a member of this place to provide support to people who are suffering, not cause extra division.
On a supplementary question, the member for Richmond.
To be honest, I'm reeling. I'm really trying to get my head around how the Premier is suggesting that Victorian commerce is more important than our obligations under international law in the context of a potential genocide. Now, I appreciate the Premier's trying to downplay our involvement as a state in the potential genocide that Israel is carrying out in Palestine. But right now, an estimated 100,000 Palestinians are either killed, wounded or missing at the hands of the Israeli military. The ICJ ruling has made it very clear that all governments have a duty to prevent genocide in Palestine. So in light of this ruling and the risk of Victoria being complicit in genocide through this agreement, will the Premier cancel Labor's deal with the Israeli Ministry of Defence?
Order. Leader of the House on a point of order.
Speaker, I ask that you rule the supplementary question out of order. As difficult as it was to hear, it was a statement made by the member, and it was hard to ascertain a question that bore any relevance to the substantive question.
I will rule on the point of order. On a member from Melbourne will resume her seat. On the point of order, Manager of Opposition Business.
Order, Speaker. Can I concur with the Leader of the House? Imputations and, frankly, anti-Semitic tones are unparliamentary, and that's what it was. It is offensive, and I would ask you to rule that question out of order.
On the point of order, Member for Melbourne.
Thank you, Speaker. On the point of order, there was a very clearly articulated question at the end. If the opposite side would have perhaps given the member for Richmond the courtesy to listen to it, it was a very clear question posed at the end, and I ask you to rule it in order.
Order, order. There was a long introduction to the final question that the member for Richmond made. I appreciate that that was probably not necessary, but she did land on a question at the end. The question can be repeated. The question only. Member for Richmond.
In light of the ICJ ruling and the risk of being complicit in genocide through this agreement, will the Premier cancel Labor's deal with the Israeli Ministry of Defence?
Order, order. The member for Richmond has changed the words to her question. I believe that the first question that you asked was, will the Premier rule out Labor's deal with the Israeli Ministry of Defence? I will allow the question. Premier.
Thank you, Speaker. And can I say in answer to the member for Richmond's question, she has firstly either misrepresented or misunderstood the ICJ ruling around what they did and didn't say about the situation around genocide in the Middle East. So firstly, she needs to stop, the member for Richmond needs to not misrepresent international incidences for her own political purposes. And let me be absolutely clear, our role in this place is to provide support for people in our community who are hurting. The member for Richmond yesterday was pretty quick to talk about a safe workplace and how she feels in this workplace. Well, have a think about people in our community who look to us for leadership and who look to us to provide safe and secure communities, and not use words and actions like the member for Richmond has done to further divide. Because that is all you achieve from this sort of behaviour.